2 days ago, America suffered the loss of 3 military aircraft deep inside Iranian airspace in what could represent the most devastating personnel recovery operation catastrophe in contemporary U.S. military chronicles. During the evening of April 4, 2026, a U.S. C-130 Hercules transport plane identified as Spur 01 crashed near Isfahan while transporting a specialized rescue operations unit. Before dawn, 2 Blackhawk choppers sent to find survivors met the same fate. The damage assessment: 1 4-engine strategic cargo aircraft valued at $67 million, 2 assault helicopters each worth $21 million, and an undetermined count of American elite forces personnel now either deceased or missing on Iranian ground. Tehran asserts it orchestrated a deliberate ambush. The Department of Defense has maintained complete silence. And the evidence I'm about to present indicates this wasn't simply a failed extraction attempt. This was a calculated trap that targeted every weakness in U.S. combat personnel recovery protocols. During the following 12 minutes, I'll guide you through precisely what transpired in the airspace above Isfahan between April 3rd and April 5th. You'll discover the exact Iranian weapons platforms that eliminated each aircraft, the strategic choices that converted a standard extraction into a killing zone, and the classified weaknesses in American special operations that Tehran has been analyzing for years. Corporate media is presenting wreckage imagery and death toll projections. What they're concealing is the strategic planning behind this trap, the military superiority Iran just revealed, and why America's conventional personnel retrieval procedures just became useless in a single night. This is the narrative neither administration wants you to piece together. Let's start. To comprehend how this disaster developed, we must rewind 72 hours. On April 3, 2026, a US F-15E Strike Eagle was executing deep strike missions against Iranian rocket manufacturing complexes near Isfahan when it sustained damage from what Tehran reports was a locally manufactured Sayyad 4 surface-to-air weapon. The F-15E, identification number 91-0323 or 0324, had a 2-person crew, the pilot and weapons systems officer. Based on flight monitoring information examined by independent analysts, the jet's identification signal disappeared at roughly 2,247 hours local at an elevation of 28,000 feet, approximately 40 kilometers northeast of Isfahan. Both aircrew successfully ejected. Iranian government broadcasting displayed video evidence showing parachutes floating toward mountainous landscape. Within moments, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps declared it had sent ground teams to apprehend the downed flyers before U.S. extraction assets could arrive. And here is where the ambush was prepared, because Tehran knew precisely what would follow. The U.S. Air Force functions under a protocol called Personnel Recovery outlined in Joint Publication 3-50. When American flight crews are downed in enemy zones, the closest combat search and rescue CSAR resources are instantly deployed regardless of danger. Tehran has examined this protocol for decades. They understand American leadership will dispatch rescue assets. They understand the flight corridors those assets will utilize. And during the night of April 4th, they were positioned and ready. But what Tehran executed next surpassed conventional air defense methods. They didn't merely prepare to eliminate rescue choppers. They constructed a multi-layered trap engineered to annihilate the largest American aircraft in theater, a plane Washington assumed was invulnerable over Iranian territory. At roughly 23:15 hours local on April 4th, fewer than 24 hours following the F-15E downing, a U.S. Air Force C-130J Super Hercules launched from a classified installation, probably Al Udeid in Qatar or Al Dhafra in the UAE. The C-130J isn't a fighting aircraft. It's a 4-engine turboprop cargo hauler built to transport soldiers and supplies. But in specialized missions, the MC-130J version fulfills a vital function, penetrating and recovering personnel from restricted zones using terrain concealment, low-elevation flying, and sophisticated electronic warfare technology to evade tracking. This specific aircraft, identified as Spur 101, was transporting what intelligence describes as a Joint Special Operations Command extraction unit, probably Delta Force operatives alongside combat search and rescue experts, signal specialists, and potentially medics. Total crew and passengers estimated at 20 to 30 American military members. The operational blueprint would have followed standard CSAR procedures: penetrate low and rapidly into the objective zone under darkness, locate the downed F-15E aircrew, recover them before Iranian units converge, and escape Iranian territory before defenses can engage. Tehran was prepared. According to declarations from IRGC Aerospace Force Commander Amir Ali Hajizadeh, Iranian defense networks monitored Spur 101 from the instant it violated Iranian airspace. The aircraft was allegedly operating at an elevation below 500 feet, exploiting valleys and mountain ridges to conceal its radar profile. But Tehran has invested 2 decades modernizing its integrated defense grid specifically to counter low-elevation intrusions. They positioned mobile tracking stations into the highlands surrounding Isfahan days beforehand, establishing overlapping surveillance that eliminated the C-130's terrain concealment benefits. At 2,347 hours local, approximately 60 kilometers from the estimated position of the downed F-15E personnel, Spur 101 was attacked by what Iranian intelligence identifies as a Khordad-15 mobile defense platform. The Khordad-15 is a truck-based launcher carrying Sayed-3 missiles with a reach of 120 kilometers and an engagement altitude of 27 kilometers. But its genuine capability is the tracking system, a phased array that can monitor multiple low-flying objects simultaneously, even across mountainous geography. Iranian broadcasting released what they assert is radar recording showing the C-130's path seconds before destruction. The aircraft initiated evasive actions. It released chaff and flares. Nothing worked. The Sayed-3 weapon employs semi-active radar guidance, meaning it follows a signal transmitted by the ground radar directly to detonation. Defensive measures that deceive heat tracking or active radar weapons prove useless. The missile exploded near the C-130's left wing assembly. The blast severed control lines and sparked fuel compartments. The aircraft disintegrated mid-flight. While Spur 101 was crashing, 2 HH-60 Pave Hawk helicopters were already approaching the identical zone. Pave Hawks are the Air Force's specialized combat search and rescue rotorcraft fitted with aerial refueling capability, defensive systems, and heavy weaponry. These machines would have deployed from a forward staging point, potentially a hidden facility inside Kurdistan or a pre-staged vessel in the Persian Gulf. Their objective: find survivors from Spur 101 and recover them before Iranian ground troops arrived. They failed to complete their mission. At roughly 0123 hours local on April 5, both helicopters were targeted by man-portable air defense systems, MANPADS, as they approached the impact location. Iranian intelligence claimed the armaments used were locally manufactured MISAC, 2 shoulder-launched missiles, an enhanced variant of the Chinese QW-2. These weapons have a reach of 5 kilometers and employ infrared tracking to lock onto helicopter engine signatures. In highland conditions at night, helicopters are compelled to navigate predictable corridors through valleys, rendering them exposed to strikes by MANPADS units stationed on elevated positions. Both Pave Hawks were struck within moments of each other. The first helicopter, identified as Pedro 83, was damaged in the tail rotor mechanism. Loss of tail rotor function in a helicopter is fatal. The aircraft entered an uncontrolled rotation and struck the terrain at extreme velocity. The second helicopter, Pedro 84, was damaged in the main rotor assembly. Observers on the ground described seeing the rotor system detach from the airframe before the aircraft descended. Iranian government television transmitted video showing flaming debris distributed across a slope. No survivors were observable in the broadcast. The Department of Defense has not acknowledged losses but has also not refuted them. And here is where the strategic consequences become evident. Because Tehran didn't merely destroy 3 aircraft. They demonstrated they can render American extraction missions fatal. And that transforms everything about how the U.S. armed forces function over enemy zones. Let's examine what America just sacrificed in monetary terms alone. 1 C-130J Super Hercules. Unit price $67.3 million. That excludes the specialized systems aboard for special operations tasks. Include electronic warfare equipment, encrypted communications, defensive countermeasures, and mission-tailored modifications. The actual replacement figure approaches $90 million. 2 HH-60 Pave Hawk helicopters. Unit price $21 million each, totaling $42 million. But again, that's baseline pricing. Pave Hawks transport aerial refueling capabilities, advanced navigation tools, extraction winches, defensive armaments, and survivability enhancements. Completely equipped replacement cost roughly $30 million per helicopter, $60 million combined. Currently, we're at $150 million in destroyed aircraft. But the genuine price is lives. A C-130J crew for a specialized mission includes at minimum 5 flight crew, 2 pilots, flight engineer, navigator, and loadmaster. Include a JSOC extraction squad of 15 to 20 operators. Each PAVE Hawk transports a crew of 4 plus additional PJs, pararescue specialists, and protection personnel, roughly 8 to 10 per helicopter. Combined personnel across all 3 aircraft, conservatively calculated at 40 to 50 American military members. The Department of Defense has not published fatality statistics. Iranian intelligence asserts they have retrieved bodies and detained survivors, though these assertions remain unconfirmed independently. Beyond the immediate sacrifice, consider the strategic expense. Every American aviator operating over Iran now understands that if they're downed, extraction isn't assured. In reality, extraction might condemn the units dispatched to save them. That mental toll undermines operational readiness throughout the entire combat zone. Aviators accept reduced dangers. Strategic planners impose limitations. The mission pace decelerates. And Tehran, observing everything, sees validation that their approach succeeds. Here's what genuinely occurred over Isfahan and why it signifies a fundamental transformation in this conflict. Tehran didn't experience fortune. They constructed a purposeful ambush exploiting the single factor they knew America couldn't disregard: downed flight crew. The F-15E casualty on April 3rd was authentic, but the reaction was foreseeable. U.S. protocol requires immediate extraction efforts. Tehran weaponized that predictability. They established air defense platforms along anticipated approach vectors. They positioned manpad squads at probable recovery locations. They waited for the extraction element to commit, and then they executed the trap. The C-130 was the principal objective. Eliminating a special operations transport communicates a statement: American SOF cannot function unrestricted in Iranian airspace anymore. And the Blackhawks were supplementary. Destroying the subsequent extraction rotorcraft amplifies the psychological damage and pressures Washington to reconsider whether future extraction efforts justify the danger. This is asymmetric conflict at maximum effectiveness. Tehran invested approximately $2 million on the weapons and platforms deployed in this ambush. America forfeited $150 million in aircraft and an unknown quantity of elite trained personnel. The expenditure ratio benefits Tehran by a proportion of 75 to 1. But the strategic consequence transcends finances. U.S. combat search and rescue protocol is founded on the concept that no military member is abandoned. Leadership is anticipated to hazard resources and lives to retrieve downed flight crew. Tehran just rendered that protocol impractical, because now every extraction operation over Iranian zones must be organized assuming it will face ambush. That demands supplementary escort aircraft, electronic warfare coverage, suppression of enemy air defenses, strike formations to eliminate Iranian tracking installations, and potentially special operations assaults to destroy manpad squads before the extraction element advances. The complexity and resource demands escalate. The duration needed to initiate an extraction lengthens. The extended the delay, the greater probability Iranian ground troops locate the downed crew initially. Consider what occurs when another American aircraft crashes over Iran. Does Washington dispatch another extraction element knowing it could generate further casualties? Or do they forsake the crew, violating the essential agreement between the armed forces and its personnel? Neither alternative is viable. But Tehran has maneuvered American leadership into a situation where they must decide. And that's the snare, not the weapons. The strategic paralysis. Tehran is also transmitting a wider signal to regional partners. If America can't safeguard its own extraction assets, how reliable is the American pledge to shield Gulf nations from Iranian retaliation? Saudi Arabia, UAE, Kuwait, they're all observing this. They're witnessing American aircraft plummet from the heavens and extraction operations collapse. And they're reassessing whether accommodating American forces merits the danger of becoming Iranian objectives themselves. 3 American aircraft eliminated in 48 hours. AC-130 transporting special operations members ambushed and obliterated. 2 Blackhawks eliminated attempting to save the extraction squad. An unknown quantity of American military personnel deceased or detained on Iranian territory. And a Department of Defense that has maintained silence because there exist no satisfactory responses to the questions this catastrophe generates. The framework has transformed. U.S. air superiority over Iran is no longer absolute. Combat search and rescue, the foundation of American military ethos, has evolved into a strategic vulnerability that Tehran can leverage. And the price, both monetary and human, is rising beyond anything pre-conflict projections anticipated. Distribute this video because the corporate coverage is presenting wreckage. They're not presenting the strategic disaster this constitutes. Post your analysis in the comments. Do you believe Washington will modify its extraction protocol following this? Or will they continue deploying units into traps because the option, abandoning downed personnel, is inconceivable? Share your perspective.